Hello, everybody. Guess what?
Guess what? What?
It's Asteroid City.
What? Oh!
Anderson's, baby. We're back. We're almost done. We're into the 2023s.
Yeah.
And I'm Abe Epperson.
I'm Michael Swaim. But you know it's going to be a good one because it's Anders' son's Asteroid City. Anders' son.
I see it. I see it.
Asteroid City. More like Disasteroid Shitty, am I right?
Hey, whoa, hot take coming out of the gate. Yeah. I didn't love it either. I like French Dispatch more, but I also think that like a given aesthetic has a buff for me. Like I'm not a very consistent man.
I fully intended to not get into how I didn't like it this early. And I couldn't hold out. This is the one. Welcome to Dunktown, Population Swaim.
Well, yeah. I'm not going to dunk on it the entire time, but I do want to examine it exactly what made it not work for us as much as others.
I find that just as interesting to do if it doesn't become a dunk fest. So let's dive in and start unpacking Asteroid City. We do that through 3 layers. The first one is diegesis, where we're just going to run you through it if you haven't seen it or if you saw it but you forget. So, and yeah, there'll be insights peppered throughout. So it's not just reading a Wikipedia page.
That's right.
Huh? Should
I just want to say first off, no title. They just jump right in. That's rare.
Yeah, and
Wes
silence.
Anderson.
Yeah. They just start the... Okay, I'll start because if I recall correctly, the last few episodes you've started. Bryan Cranston, new addition to the Wes Anderson verse, on a black and white stage serving as a narrator to the audience, but functionally doing like a stage play for radio like they did in those old-timey days of yore. He is presenting to the audience. I'm already rolling my eyes. I'll stop. He presents a play about the writing of a play about Asteroid City. Ed Norton plays the playwright who writes Asteroid City within the play that Bryan Cranston is presenting. Ed Norton seems to be based on Tennessee Williams or like a Tennessee Williams Truman Capote sort of mashup. Through this mechanic, we're introduced to the cast. Which is Ed Norton narrating the characters in his play. So follow me now. We've had narration and now we have narration. And he basically just goes, here's our characters. They're played by these people. Let's start. A train rolls into the tiny town of Asteroid City, population 87. There's just a gas station, a diner, an unfinished highway on-ramp, a small hotel, and a big crater, which, as it turns out, is the only reason there's like civilization here, right? Is a big meteorite hit. It's called the Arid Plains Crater or meteorite, and there's a science station there, and it's a tourist trap, but like a very small one. So anyway, this is a play. So then it says Act 1, scenes 1 to 3. And we're in the car with Jason Schwartzman playing his dad, a dad of a son known, introduced to us as Brainiac. And there's also he has 3 daughters who are kind of treated as a chorus. They all stop for gas in Asteroid City because they're having car trouble. No, they aren't yet. No, yeah, they are. So they stop for gas. They go into the diner while the mechanic looks over the damage. The son calculates the trajectory of their mileage for the rest of the trip or whatever. There's a mushroom cloud in the background through the window. So I guess there's also like a, Manhattan Project.
Military.
They're doing A-bomb tests out there in the desert. And their car needs work from Jack from House That Jack Built, which is the only role people know him from. I always forget his name. He says, here's this
Matt Dillon.
There's this tiny 75-cent part. Either it will work or it won't. If it doesn't work, you're totally stuck. It doesn't work. They're totally stuck. So they're going to stay in Asteroid City for a spell. And Jason Schwartzman calls, of all people, new Wes Anderson ad, Tom Hanks, who's playing his father-in-law, the children's grandpa.
Stanley Zach. Yeah.
And he asks for help. And several things become clear. They don't get along. He accepted him because he loves his daughter. He loves his grandkids, so he's going to help. he doesn't hate him, but it's just cordial and they've never been close. And Jason Schwartzman's, I think his name's Bert, but I don't remember. Wife
Augie
died.
Steenbeck.
Thank you, Augie. Wife has died, and he hasn't told his kids yet. And Tom Hanks thinks that's deplorable, and he has to tell them right away.
Yeah.
And he's putting it off because he can't bring himself to do it. Understandable. But he says, come pick us up. And he goes, but me and Brainiac will stay behind because he has a Junior Stargazers event here in Asteroid City, which we were stopping for anyway, but you can take the girls. Or come and hang out and watch the event, and then we'll all go in your car or whatever. Yeah, that's it. It just ends with him going, you never thought I was good enough for her. And he goes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Act 1, scenes 4 and 5.
Yeah, take a drink.
Yeah.
Another title card.
Yeah. The bus blows into town. It's exactly like Dogtown. Pause this, go watch Dogtown, and then House the Jack Built, and then come back here. Bus arrives in town, by which I mean people are going to gather to Asteroid City. So a group of Christian kids arrive by bus. ScarJo arrives as some kind of famous actress who's here for what we'll find out later. Her name's Midge Campbell, the movie Saw. Liev Schreiber is her bodyguard. Steve Carell, amazing new Wes Anderson ad, one of the most technically talented comedic actors of our generation, wasted completely, is a very vanilla guy with few lines who runs the cottages.
Right.
And we just sort of get introduced to all the people. There's a cowboy band that their tour bus breaks down so the movie can have diegetic music in it, which I do like. Some of the stuff I like. So Augie Steenberg breaks it to his kids that their mom's been dead for 3 whole weeks. He says, let's say she's in heaven, which doesn't exist for me, of course, but you're Episcopalian. Hug me now. Now sit down again. So you're like, I see their relationship. He lectures them about how as children they have a distorted sense of time and tragedy, and time does not heal all wounds, and they will be haunted.
15 minutes is 6,200 hours.
Yeah, and they will be haunted by this forever, but that's not their fault, and life will continue. Like, he gives them the unvarnished adult version of grieving for a dead person that obviously is humorously inappropriate to lay on children. Cut back to Ed Norton in black and white writing the play, and we meet... So we're breaking the fourth wall, but it's the fourth wall of a thing within a framing device. So we're breaking like the 8th wall orthogonal to the ceiling or whatever. But basically,
I think it's actually less than that. It's breaking
the 1.5 wall.
It's 1.5 wall. Yeah.
Sure.
It kind of makes no sense, right?
Yes.
Like,
so it
breaks reality is what it's doing.
We cut back to the black and white play that's a play about Ed Norton writing the play, but that breaks down for Ed Norton to do basically also a documentary as Hybrid Eyes, where we meet the actors. Kind of like in French Dispatch, how we did little vignettes and met the writers behind the pieces. We meet the characters and the actors. So now we're going to meet the actor who plays Augie, and they talk about status games. He smashes a window during his audition to make a big impact. Like, you see his audition. He asks very insightful questions about the character. You can tell Ed Norton's impressed. He acts at home. He plays with the stuff on his desk without permission. They actually start to flirt, and you realize, they're also probably going to become gay lovers.
Yeah, this
and that'll be part of why he
wants.
Casts him. Yeah.
Which is an actor's, like, this is stuff actors do.
It's a dream audition. He does a going rogue, unorthodox audition that nails the part, and he gets to fuck the director. It's like, So, he suddenly slips into a monologue from the play and nails it, whatever. Which is, by the way, the monologue he nails is not in the movie later. And it's a monologue of him telling his sons that aliens are real and they stole the Arid Plains meteoroid, and that means anything is possible. So maybe your mother is in the stars.
Maybe she's in the stars. Pachelbel's canon plays over them kissing. Like, it's clearly meant to be like eye-rolly as much as possible. And
he's like, now this is the saccharine presentation of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, what's like the most obvious thing to play? Well, the love song, the song that's in every, wedding that's ever occurred.
What's the most hollow comfort you could say if you don't believe in God? Maybe she's in the stars. Yeah. That's like phoned in bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get nude and kiss. How about we separate it by act? I'll finish act 1 and then you take over.
Sure, act 1 is by far.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
it's
let me just do
movie.
6 to 9 and nice.
Yeah.
And then you'll take over.
You got it.
Act 1, scenes 6 to 9. Augie. Whoa, sorry, my notes thing just completely reset itself for some weird reason. Scenes, that's too late. We scroll up. Augie takes a picture of Midge, the movie star, at the diner. He's also a photographer. She balks, you can't do that. Yeah. I'm famous. You need permission to take my picture. He says, well, I'm a decorated war photographer, journalist, and veteran. Here's my shrapnel scar. And she's like, oh, never mind. It would be cool if you took my picture. You're allowed to.
Send me the photo.
Send me that photo. Up that to the cloud. No, it's 1951 or whatever. We also meet Jeffrey Wright, who's a general or some shit, and find out that several of the people are here to participate in Asteroid Day, which is just, all tourist traps. Like one day a year is the climax of that. This is the day we celebrate the asteroid.
Yep.
And Jeffrey Wright turns the camera and Spike's camera and begins to narrate directly at us. It's like Bob Balaban from Moonrise Kingdom is like, I'll just take over from here.
It's very Kurt Vonnegut, Breakfast of Champions, is it not?
Hey, you keep his goddamn name out of your mouth. That's in literature where it is it's fit to the medium. Anyway, we find out there's going to be a cookout. There's going to be a tour of the science station. There's going to be fireworks. There's going to be stargazing and an awarding to the best science project. The whole festival takes 3 days. Then he says, I will begin my speech now. And I do like this. Very Kids in the Hall. And suddenly, what would we call it? The depicted as real world of Asteroid City, which itself is a play being written within a play, suddenly becomes very play-like. Like spotlights hit him.
Melodramatic, one could argue.
Yeah, vignette. It becomes a vignette. And he starts doing what I would call intentionally, and Jeffrey Wright's incredible, a cheesy one-man show style of like, and then doubt came in. Like, animated. And he just does a whole where he like walks from mic to mic in a needless fashion that makes
the most acting
over the top. Yeah. It's the most acting possible. And it's about the mysterious nature of knowledge in the universe and that, it can never be conquered. And it ends with him saying to the kids, if, that war is on the horizon and if you wanted to live a long, quiet, peaceful life, I'm afraid you picked the wrong time to be born. That's my speech.
Yeah.
Then it's time to give out the science awards.
Yeah. I think there's a reason why we both like that. It's like sometimes that's an actual, that's an echoing thought to feel like you're born in the wrong era.
I didn't choose to be born at this time. Totally. Very core. Also, I just want to know, or Kids in the Hall fans, or go look up the sketch, Are Aliens Dull? Are Extraterrestrials Dull? It's such a funny thing to watch side by side with this. So anyway, they give out
Tilda Swinton.
They give out awards. Tilda Swinton. I feel like I'm like, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Tilda Swinton is in it. That doesn't need to be said.
Like the first one to be like, "Are you? Yeah, I'm in." Baby.
She gives out science awards to the kids. One of the kids made a working jetpack. One of the kids made you can only do 2 jokes. Either they're all really bad or they're all amazing. And he went that way.
Right.
Jetpack, ray gun, thing that makes plants grow instantly. Discovery of a new element that is not on the periodic table.
Tomorrowland. Yeah.
A holographic imager that can project ads on the moon that you can then collect revenue for, a la The Tick. That also famously happened in The Tick. During a tour of Tilda's observatory, she's the lead scientist at the science station. Brainiac asks some incisive questions about science. There's some random blips from space, and he goes, what are those? And she says, probably a red herring. Which, of course, means, no, that's real, because it's a movie. So,
and also, you have a literal platform for
the alien
this
to
data
arrive.
thing.
Yeah. And
in clearly alien language.
And Brainiac points out that it's beeping out in Morse code a date on the galactic calendar that coincides with today's date and is updated in real time. And she's like, yeah, we really don't think it's anything.
Yeah.
Abe, please.
There's another
Act 1, scenes 10 through 12.
We get a scene where some junior stargazer honorees ask Woodrow, the Schwartzman son, to join their table. He shows them all, as he would do, a photo of his hot dead mom. Bryan Cranston then narrates that 10 weeks later, Asteroid City is going to be published its reality as a public concern. It's like the Los Alamos of this fictional reality. And basically Scarlett Johansson has been called out as being a fake, as a propagandist by a TV director played by Adrian Brody. And he basically calls her out on it and says, you're basically working for the government and I don't respect that. And that's my public statement. And then in a second letter, he apologizes and says, I'm sorry I did that public statement. It's a ploy for my personal ploy for populism. And I apologize deeply. I have so much regret.
It was hot take clickbait.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we cut back to the junior scientists, and they play a game where they name famous scientists and thinkers in a circle. It's very erotic, I would say. These teens naming nerd stuff. And we get another titles. Act 1, scenes 13 through 17. One of the scientists' wives, who's played by Maya Hawke, who is also the teacher of the town's children, chastises a group of cowboys outside her home for smoking and loitering and just being general, vagabonds. Like, what's your point out here? What is you like? It's almost like they're the backdrop of the American kind of vision of the West, and they're being outsourced by these pesky kind of scientists and brainiacs and teachers. And so we kind of have this loose kind of battle between the two of them that's more or less just played out as a metaphor. It's not really a thing. It's not like they dislike each other. They have to coexist. Adjacent to each other home-wise, Schwartzman and Johansson are basically talking. ScarJo approves of the photo he took earlier, and then she takes a shower in front of his view and tells a story where the point basically leads to she was never there and unseen in her previous relationship, and she's basically looking for a divorce. Not to spin other media here, but I just wanted to point out the show Manhattan literally has this interaction. It's from the early 2010s. Such a good and accomplishes show. In 2 shots, no dialogue. Go watch Manhattan, the series from WGN. Anyway, that's a defunct streamer now.
Right. People are like, from WGN. And it's like, yeah, that's why you didn't see it. And you don't need to see anything they made except Manhattan.
Which is one of the best TV shows of all time.
You ever want to see one of the wet bandits as a physicist?
Anyway, we cut back to Cowboy interacting with Steve Carell, who's like, the local hotelier, gas attendant, just like man of all trades, explaining that you can buy land from a vending machine, which is a cool little addition to this, amongst the rows of vending machines that sell pop and 50s wholesomeness.
That's their souvenir. It's like buying land on the moon because it's the whole desert. Who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit? Yeah. So Tom Hanks interacts with his grandchildren, who are trying to summon their mother back to life via a little witchy spell, which is fantastic. I think that's a great thing for your triplets to do.
Very sad. They're like, Mom died. Well, we'll get on that. Yeah.
It's much in the same. It's Coen Brothers. He's a suitor. It's like we're dealing
they
with
those girls. Absolutely.
Yeah. They deal with tragedy by covering up it. Which is a very typical Wes Anderson thing to do, I would say. But he joins them instead of like saying, don't do a spell. He joins them in the spell, and he says that he won't disrupt his daughter's plans, however. Like this is, maybe she meant to be dead, and he's trying to teach them, taking a teachable moment for his grandchildren to say sometimes you let sleeping dogs lie, so to speak. And that's interrupted by fireworks, which I only mention because the shot is pretty fantastic, even though it doesn't have much thematic involvement other than moving the plot forward. This is my main gripe with Wes Anderson, given his impressive pedigree. But in any case, we cut to a close-up of the political gala that Tilda Swinton remarks some nonsense science that orbital rotations affect the planets, which do something in celestial
Every 57
flirtation.
years, a thing is lining up. Isn't it great?
Yeah, and maybe the next generation will solve this unsolvable problem. And then they all put on cardboard hats, a la,
An eclipse. Like you can't look right at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of Asteroid City witnesses this extraterrestrial event that actually isn't just a celestial movement, but is actual aliens. And they land on the ground and they grab the meteoroid that came before the otherworldly material that exists on Earth. And they, say like, we're going to take this, and then they bail. And it's very, played as if it's unexpected, played it as if it feels like Isle of Dogs.
Yeah,
where, like,
and I think very importantly, and you can imagine it so clearly instantly, there's a static wide with a big group, and then Jason Schwartzman slowly raises his camera and snaps a single picture. So now the world knows there's aliens.
It's perhaps one of the most like for like Wes Anderson.
right. Very Simpsons, end of a Simpsons scene. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. In any case,
then I believe the end is someone goes, the aliens stole the asteroid.
Yeah. I think you might be right. And that is halfway through. That is end of Act 1. That is the intermission, which it says is optional, which I thought was a silly thing to include.
Dude, I was like, Can I leave? Is that allowed? That's awesome, dude. Good move.
Frame back up. Bryan Cranston continues the play within the play. And the play is designed by Adrian Brody, I think we mentioned, who is a genius, clearly. Everyone says he's a genius. While he's being portrayed behind the scenes, in the play, within the play, as an idiot. His wife's unhappy with his presence in the marriage and says she doesn't regret loving him, but like it's too much. And we get that set up, and then we get more titles.
He lives on the
set
of the play. He's very Jared Leto, pissing everyone off with his method
New York
shit. Won't
as
shower.
well. He's searching for something real. Scenes 1 to 2, Act 2. And this is 55 minutes into the film, midway kind of area. In the wake of the alien like arrivals, the military's taken over the base, and protocols have to kind of take over, despite their lack of understanding of what first contact actually means. They just are like, we have to do these protocols, right? It's quarantine now, and the junior astronomers are interrogated to become the next government agents, because they're like, well, you're the next class coming in, so we have to train you up, and you're going to be the ones who kind of run the place, which is a strange kind of doomsday of kind of thought process, which I think is the point. Act 2, scenes 3 through 7. Maya Hawke, as the teacher, tries to teach astronomy while the kids all want to talk about the alien event, and she talks about how we're all fine. And a cowboy arrives and interrupts the class, and he kind of says, to try to calm the class, aliens aren't really, here to harm us at all. If they meant harm, well, goddamn, the U.S. Air Force would take care of it. And that kind of calms the kids.
Settles the kids down with some bullshit.
Yeah, it also settles Maya Hawke down, who is agitated. Don't exactly know why this is important.
I don't know why the Cowboys are there, or why didn't they just play music? Why does he have a scene? But okay.
I have a theory about the Cowboys, but yes, you're kind of on the right.
In Fantastic Mr. Fox, he had musicians there just to play the music, and that's cute. I'm fine with that. I just am puzzled about why he walks in and has a bunch of lines.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yep. It's a big question that maybe he'll answer someday. Yeah. All right. So then we get yada, yada, yada. Lost my spot, I think.
Brainiac and Midge's daughter flirt a bit is where we're at.
Yes.
Jason
Schwartzman shows Johansson his clear photo of an alien, which she is not impressed by. She sees that the two of them are terribly wounded people who just lack the ability to express how wounded they are. Margot Tenenbaum, if you would. Just then, Tom Hanks arrives, seemingly trying to lock down like the situation, and specifically ScarJo. It seems clear that he's like kind of funding the whole city or something, because he's seen as a guy with great power. But as it is explained to him by Steve Carell, he doesn't technically own anything. It's all owned by the government, to which Tom Hanks proposes the existential question of what is owning and what is meaning. And the ladies kind of do the same at the bathrooms, which I thought was a funny thing of like, you have a philosophical question and then you cut to other people having the same philosophical question. And you're like, you didn't feel the need to explain why that one happened.
Why they synced up with the same very obscure conversation.
Act 2, scenes 8 through 10. So the quarantine is in full effect. The citizens of the small town, Schwartzman, Hank, Schwartzman's boy, Woodrow, all discuss what the next steps are, and government trust is an all-time low. They basically don't feel that anyone other than them in that room will essentially do anything that is worthwhile. And the olds inhibit the young's questions as to what it all means, or why are we doing this protocol, or what's this for. So Tom Hanks espouses to his son that basically, you're not welcome at home, even though Hanks has to abide it. If you demand it, I will let you stay at my place instead. And Schwartzman, of course, says, no, I'll stay in Asteroid City. And the segment ends with the Scholastic Club overstepping their bounds a bit and starting to kind of influence the behind the scenes cut to essentially back in the play, where it's like, now we're really getting the walls kind of fall beneath, and you don't know what's meta and what's not, because they start kind of
they even do the joke where Bryan Cranston walks into the color world and goes, oh, this isn't my scene, and walks out. This isn't my scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He has to kind of disappear because he thought it was his time, because meta was happening. And then we get end of Act 2, and this is, of course, as the movie's falling apart, the moment where there is no title. What does it mean? There's 2 spikes on a graph?
Yeah, it's a vague interlude that doesn't have a title card. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where there would be a, scenes 11 through etc., but it doesn't. And then we cut to the play, and we kind of have our end of Act 2. So you, if you would, they're questioning the purpose of the play itself. Now the actors are espousing why are we even doing this, which turns into the actors talking about how they're just actions in the play.
It's also straight up in synecdoche. Yeah, that's why are we even doing this play? Yeah,
and the purpose must be extrapolated from something else, because the purpose has no purpose. And that's where we get our Act 3. Do you want to take over?
Sure, because it's literally to be played without a break, as it says. So we don't get title cards anymore. It's like he inched toward breaking the convention and now abandons the convention.
Yes.
The city is a media circus, almost a literal circus. There are rides and corn dogs and shit. But it's like, when Springfield, I'm writing a Simpsons show for Cracked right now. Sorry. So I keep referencing it. All the furor around Mr. Burns being an alien. So there's like guys selling T-shirts and bullshit, newsmen, merch, etc. Also government agents, right? Trying to keep a lid on it, trying to figure out what the fuck to do. They're trying to prosecute the nerd group now at this point, where there's friction between the nerd faction and the government faction. Mm-hmm. There's more astronomy stuff going on. The kids for lack of anything better to do, all do art projects about the alien and present them, songs, models, etc. The cowboy band plays a song about the alien, and the kid who wrote it sings. It's just like a hoedown about aliens. Right. Very generic, straightforward, except that it's about aliens. Bernie, no, why can't I get that? Augie shows Midge, ScarJo, a photo he took of himself right after he was wounded by the shrapnel. It's just like an escalation of an even more intimate, the whole movie is them leaning towards each other. So they practice another scene from a play she did, and it's her in the tub having slit her wrists and dying. And she literally delivers the monologue deathly still as a corpse. And then she's like, you're not a good scene partner. Well, I'm not an actor. Well, act better. Well, I don't know how to do that. Well, your wife just died. Think about that. Use that grief. And then he does the lines again, but just sadder, like he nails it, like any number of Barry episodes or scenes where suddenly someone can act.
Yeah.
She informs him that her daughter, she has a daughter here as well, if we haven't mentioned, knows that they've been sleeping together, but she doesn't think the relationship is going to turn into anything serious, and he should know that. This is how disconnected it felt to me towards this. If you're like, why are the threads just petering out?
Right.
They say the alien looked like at us like we're doomed. Well, maybe we are. Maybe we are. And then he burns his hand on a waffle iron and shows her the wound. Okay. Very dramatic, sir. Look at my pain. The soldiers set up a shooting range and train to kill aliens, right? If aliens should come, we need to shoot at them. A soldier and Liev Schreiber argue over, like, they want to conscript the son to, like, can we use the ray gun? And he's like, the ray gun, they're fighting about who gets authority over the use of the ray gun. Right. My son invented the fucking ray gun. Yeah. Quarantine drags on. People are getting restless. The nerd kids steal lab equipment so they can do a secret project to try and contact the alien peacefully. The government escalates their preparations to kill the aliens if they come. Ultimately, the kids plan to modify the moon projector. And they're like, well, the government will immediately find out where it's coming from and shut us down. So we can only send one message to the aliens. So what's the philosophically perfect, correct thing to say to aliens if you could only say one thing? That's an interesting question that I like muddling. Yeah. Steve Carell just basically says, this is good. I hate how little, he's like, this is good. I'm going to expand my hotel with the increased revenue that the tourism is bringing in. And you're like, okay, that's fine. You go do that. Yeah, you make no impact on anything. And you do the natural thing that you would do. It's fine. Yeah.
You're just a guy that they interact with.
Jesus, toe mater. Jeffrey Wright announces that the quarantine is finally lifted because they've done... This is funny. The government has done inspections and they know with absolute certainty the alien's gone. Just then the alien lands again.
Yeah. drops the
meteoroid, looks at it like with a weird expression like, whoop, and then bails. You're like, okay.
Wait, what?
You're intentionally, I think, can't clearly interpret it specifically. It's just like a weird happenstance. I don't know that it means something specific. Maybe I'm wrong. And they go inspect it and they find that the alien carved an alien symbol in the bottom of it. This is the one thing I get from it is, oh, it was trying to communicate with us the whole time, just like we were. Isn't that what life is about? Connecting to other beings. But nevertheless,
just keep telling the story.
The government goes, well, shit, now you're re-quarantined. And Liev Schreiber goes, fuck that, I'll get this motherfucker, and shoots at the alien with the death gun. The kid who invented the jetpack just takes off wildly in the jetpack. There's a riot of super science accidents occurring, which is
just chaos.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, there's good. It certainly has good sequences.
That's
Brainiac overrides everyone. This is very Fifth Element ending, and projects the most important message he could think of on the moon,
love,
which is a heart. And then he finally screws up the courage to kiss Midge's daughter, who he's been flirting with and holding hands with. Isn't love the ultimate always family? Yes. Let's see. Augie. We pan out. I think this does save the hand griddle. Fuck me. I eat my words on the griddle thing because this is perfect. So then it cuts out to the actor, not Jason Schwartzman, but the actor Jason Schwartzman is playing, talking to Ed Norton, asking a question about the character. And he goes, okay, I get everything now, except why did Augie burn his hand on the griddle? I don't understand the play. Then... I forget
my pictures come out.
Oh, Ed Norton, I believe, barges backstage. Whatever, the worlds start colliding. It becomes color and black and white, and color characters are in the black and white and back and forth. And he talks to the actor who played the alien, who takes off his head, and it turns out it's Jeff Goldblum. Of course, very delightful reveal. And Jeff Goldblum says, I don't need to understand it. I'm playing the alien, not as an alien, but a metaphor. For what? I don't know. I haven't pinned it down yet. And then he goes, well, in order to play the alien, I think I do need to know the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life, Ed Norton? And he goes, no, just keep going, not knowing the answer. You're doing it right. This is right. Basically, they just talk about filmmaking and playwriting.
Creation of story, which is a metaphor for life.
You watch them collaborate on what you just watched transpire. He ends up going for a smoke and runs into a background actress we haven't met. And her whole arc in this scene is that she used to be in the movie and had a big part, but it was cut. And she quickly describes how she would have been woven in
Which
and
I
what
love.
would have happened to
I
her.
actually do love that move.
And she would have astral projected to the aliens planet and all this shit they couldn't afford to do or whatever. And she was the dead wife. She was going to be in dream sequences and flashbacks and help Augie come to terms with his shit. And they decided it was not necessary to see his interior for him to make those leaps. So they just cut her. And she says, I still hope it comes out. And no, I'm sorry. We're back I'm confused by my notes. We're back into Asteroid City, and Midge says to Augie, I sure hope it comes out, meaning her photo from the diner that she now really
They're
likes
the
and wants.
same. Yeah.
And he says, all my pictures come out, which is, of course, what Wes Anderson, I believe, is saying. That was
He's
what
like,
I took
I
from
did
it, is
the
that he's
job.
like, look, I can confidently make these now. Watch me hit a line drive.
Yeah, you're all
Just the
coming
vibe
at
I
me.
got.
Yeah.
But he says, all my pictures come out. Good scene. Why'd they cut it? For time. You always cut everything for time. Which is a poetic, isn't that life? I can get something out of that. It's a real mixed bag here for me.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
Swain.
hey, I spend great length of time unpacking that concept, though, in detail to mean various things.
No, it's a reference to his book, which is good.
Decline.
And you can buy it at the Patreon
I still
shop.
need to pick your brain about how it affected you.
I know.
Yeah.
You've had a time.
I know.
guys.
You're my only close friend who's read it. Jen hasn't read it. Brian Cranston says, Robert Brockway read it. Sorry.
But because he reads everything.
Brian Cranston says, because he still reads books, which we don't do. Brian Cranston said, later Ed Norton died in a car accident in the middle of the play's run. And you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a mix of black and white and color as the actors do an improv thing to like warm up for a production of the show.
You can't wake up.
And they
if
all
you
start
can't-
chanting, you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. You can't wake up until it becomes postmodern and abstracted. The alien walks into frame, holds the meteor up to the camera, like offering it to us. The cast poses and it ends like a cast might for a play. Then they say in a quick epilogue, they go, the quarantine got lifted. Everyone went home. Augie overslept, so he wakes up and it's a ghost town again. They give a little funeral for his wife, whose ashes in a Tupperware tub. Any last thoughts, Augie? Says Tom Hanks. Well, I don't believe in God anymore. Fair enough. Amen. They eat at the diner one last time on their way out of town. Brainiac announces that he ultimately did win the Grand Science Prize, which is a bunch of money. So now they're rich too. And they're like, well, that's nice. What will you do with it? He says, probably spend it on my new girlfriend. And they're like, great. Happy endings all around. Midge has the waitress give Augie her phone number and address on a slip of paper. Tom Hanks is like, you're actually all right. You should go for it with her. She seems like she likes you. It's like very, I think this is intentional satire too, but it's like, and then it all gets wrapped up in a neat little package. There's another A-bomb test in the background. Some gunfire. Police cars race through town.
Yeah.
There are sirens, and it cuts to credits without explaining
And
what
the world
was about.
The world goes on and on. The police are policing.
Also, someone committed a crime. Not about this. Not in
Everyone in the
this
city does their science things. And that leads us to the end of the film and into their next segment, pedagogy, where we're going to talk about what does it all mean?
And I know you have a
which
big
is-
thesis, so I think we should just start with that.
I think it ultimately, it's pretty, how do I say this nicely? You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. So I would say I would
Dreams
start
are
this.
good.
as
Yes, dreaming is good. Filmmaking's good. If you're
Filmaking's
talking
good. It's
about
all-
filmmaking, you're done. That means your career is done.
It's all sound and fury. It kind of signifies nothing, which is the point. There is no purpose. All it comes down to is the fact that Anderson is making his meta movie.
And it's just fun for me. And here I am doing it. Watch me. Wee.
Yeah, and he does it in a way that is entertaining. Like actors play real people who play actors. He's doing the job. He's doing the jumping between events that are framed within a play.
Remains
sometimes showing
stylish
behind
and
the scenes.
inventive all the way through.
Yeah, he's also doing story-wise. Perspectives are uncertain. Kind of the uncertainty principle itself is brought up a little bit in terms of the fact that science is happening, but not really past that. So what did or didn't happen and is reviewed or corrected by the government is, in the end, in a very Wes Anderson way, the journey is kind of the purpose, where it says there is no purpose. You will not find purpose. So you have to attach your purpose to something else. And that is the point of the play itself and the movie. And the individuals involved in it have to kind of find that purpose for themselves, or at least move on. I think Wes Anderson is saying sometimes that's sometimes getting over the grief of your dead wife, or it's being a cowboy. I actually really like you mentioned the cowboy, and I think the cowboy is a part of it because or the most clear kind of item that really sails the theme through. Take what you want from it if you like the theme or you don't, or you think that this is a worthy purpose of a book or a movie or a whatever. I like the cowboy stuff because literally I saw this in the trivia thing online that he is created by movie trickery, right? He's always appears in the audio with spurs, despite not having any when you cut to shots of him. Right. So it's like he himself is being represented as an icon for our perception of other people. In this case, the very classic iteration of the American cowboy in the Southwest. Like he himself is what they imagine him in spurs. So he has them. Reality is loose. Purpose is determined.
And this is a play. The background of even the quote unquote real sections is clearly just a blue psych. He maintains in a Gondry-esque way or a Wes Anderson way that even the world of Asteroid City is a play. Even when the sets look good, they don't look real. They look like a dollhouse kind of.
Yeah. The diorama.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of what, I mean, we've had this kind of question, and we kind of talked about what's the purpose of Wes Anderson films. And I think that he is kind of doing a unified field theory for Wes Anderson movies most recently. One is that sometimes you can just be in love with Act One, which I think is kind of profound. It feels like a haiku in that a lot of people utter it in different ways across timelines and across, we have the phrase honeymoon phase that kind of speaks to this, right? And it makes sense that in the movie where he is kind of iterating the fact that stories aren't stories, but rather reality is just purposeless, rudderless, and you kind of determine it. And Act 3 would be nonsensical, right? Because it would be there is a point to this madness.
Right. And
that's what Act 3 does.
It's funny
that fact.
Every writer, director, auteur type storyteller, everyone I think eventually comes across I totally see the fascination of, what about a story that throws even the concept of story or needing to make sense away? Well, you can never do that because you won't succeed. Well, now I'm Wes Anderson and I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
So I actually get to have that at bat where I have the balls to fully postmodern this shit and break the social contract and throw art itself in the trash. It's a fun maneuver to do. I always think it's right, but it's not fun to experience because now the third act doesn't coalesce. And there's a reason over thousands of years we realized it's super satisfying for stuff to
totally,
come together at the end. And this is not, therefore, and that's fine as an experiment.
I think he understands his purpose and not to be, frank.
Or he wouldn't have that unrelated sirens at the end. He's clearly, it's a Starship Troopers. Yeah. He knows what he's saying.
He knows what it is.
He's right. I don't.
The reflection to me is, and I don't think you would be mad. I don't know the guy, but if he was hearing me talk about his movie, he knows what he is. He is a fantastic window dressing creator, right? He is the diorama,
a visionary
stuff
stylist. Yeah.
Bar none. He's the guy when you think of who is storybook, or if you think of who is even just profound amongst his peers in this ability to create this storybook world. Name another dude, he's the dude.
Very
so he knows that he can serve this up and give you the hors d'oeuvres of like his, dollying, moving left and right and flat angles and his, toolbox. And he can be like, that is an entertaining event. And I know you'll hog this down, you little piggy. And I love that. I love that he's self-aware of that. The one thing I would point out in this section, as we're talking about meaning, is that one of the biggest critiques that was lobbed at him early in his career, and we did it on the show as well, because I think it's there, is that there is a sophomore kind of aspect to how he interprets things. I think that he makes things a storybook sometimes because that's how he deals with grief. So his characters, in a one-dimensional way, deal with grief in a storybook way. So it's like this kind of snake eating its own tail to some extent, where he's like, I don't like act threes, because I don't like clever resolutions of conflicts. So I'm going to serve you up great act ones and act two transitions where I offer conflict, but I don't need the completion of it. He
does complete. And then the punchline is, oh, and if you're one of those normos who can't handle it, here's an epilogue where everything magically works out like it does in the normal movies. You fucking sheep lap up, he's not being that acerbic with it, but that is the punchline. He's like, and this is how the happy version would go. Who gives a shit? It's a movie is kind of the statement. It's here's the thing. It's having your cake and eating it too. Which he gets to. That's totally what it feels like. But as someone who wants to be a filmmaker, I hate watching someone get their cake and eat it too. And jealousy is a factor. I'm not going to say it's not.
Sure.
I'm like, I would use that power more responsibly and only make movies with real substance, is the feeling you get sometimes. That's like, this movie's good and actually does say things. It just gives me the ick. That's like that's all I can really say. It's like, I just don't like how you carry yourself. And as a person who does value writing, I think
he'd be like, laugh at that, and he would be like, yeah,
that's fine. To each their own.
A cowboy has his spurs.
Yeah. And I like that. Like, I like a lot of his choices and techniques, and I like postmodernism. I like fanciful bullshit. Mm-hmm. But I don't like having Steve Carell and everyone just talk deadpan, and I really don't like flashing back to the scene where we realize ScarJo and Schwartzmo are first going to fall in love. She says, because of a history of intense violent trauma at the hands of men, I can no longer feel guilt anymore, so it makes me worry if I'm a bad mom. To which he replies, well, I miss my wife, but no lover could ever compete with my work because of the inherent appeal of war. Characters can't just say what they're feeling. That makes me feel angry. And I really stand behind that, only in the sense that I understand you're intentionally throwing it away, but I'd rather see the thing that you threw away then. Like, it's just, in terms of my cup of tea, seeing someone realistically go through that sequence of steps sounds like a complicated, nuanced character study that's rich. Just throwing it out flippantly, like, see, I could say real shit if I wanted. I like Scarlett Johansson could be a fully fleshed out 3-dimensional character if I wanted. I'm choosing not to. That's what's cool. And I'm like, I guess it's cool. I guess it's cool when you have all the power to be like, I'm going to throw one away, but I don't like it. It's not going to appeal to me. That's all.
I'm going to piss you off.
It's like,
even
this
more.
Is a pitch deck, the movie.
Do you want to even get pissed off even more?
Please.
There was an interview with him where it says they asked him about the you can't wake up until you.
I was going to read this interview, but you please do it. Yeah.
Well, I only wrote down just like the ultimate effect of it, which is that he won't explain what it means past the fact that it was inspired by like an improv exercise, which is very clear in the movie that they're like all muttering at themselves. These are stupid, freakish things that actors do in real life if you know them. And he thinks that if we wait a few years and he explains it then,
it'll really blow our minds.
It'll be more interesting. And quote,
Go ahead.
Actually, when I do tell you, then you'll see it and it'll be interesting. Better to let it simmer for now. What do you think of that?
At some later date, I'll say it. And I love that he couldn't resist but say, it is something that's been adapted. So he's like, the real smarties out there can start hunting for what the fuck
their eyes on the prize.
He like confirms it is a literary reference, a pretty eclectic literary reference. And it's like, and I believe in 4 or 5 years, I'll explain. And then you'll be like, very good, very good.
I think he's actually like, there's no way that there's no,
yes,
it's
there
not
is,
possible
dude.
for him to be that
Success
obtuse.
makes you a caricature of yourself. I truly
maybe,
believe
or
that
he's
people
doing
in
it
bubbles
intentionally.
do become.
Yeah.
It would happen to
He
me.
could be doing his most Fincher-esque interview. You know, like, I don't know, like the reason I bring up Fincher is that he's well known in interviews. If you haven't watched him talk about it, he's a troll. He's an absolute troll.
Yes.
He says
Coen
like,
Brothers
I didn't
too.
even know that was
Oh,
Coen
I
Brothers
didn't notice
as well.
that. And it's like,
Yeah,
fuck
stuff
you.
like that, like making the interviewer like, are you coming at me, bro? Like he's done that kind of shit. And this to me like feels so overtly like almost Trumpian in it's the best explanation. Don't worry about it. You know, it's almost like he's doing a meta narrative on like how a director would act.
Potentially.
That question.
But I also
when
say
he knows that the answer is
Yeah.
it's all sound and fury signifying nothing.
never underestimate the roles that delusion can contort humans into.
Or
People
he thinks
can
this,
become
and he's
cartoon
a terrible
characters, absolutely.
person.
And people who are so successful that they can't not live in a bubble, I think are more
It's
prone to
possible.
become grotesque caricatures.
Yeah.
All right.
I
So
think,
are you ready
How do you do
to you want to move on to how do you do that?
yeah. Let's do
Okay,
it.
great, because you already kind of slipped into it. And speaking of grotesque caricature, here's more about Wes Anderson. I think this is a beige flag, let's say, for all productions of this time. And I think we'll look back in history and just be like, it was a stumbling block and it did hurt shit. In May 2023, Wes Anderson talked about how the COVID-19 pandemic inspired the film and its story. And it was about quarantine and the feeling of meaninglessness when there's nothing to do and there's nothing to do. So let's just make a movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it better be in a box because we're all quarantined. And he says, I don't think there'd be a quarantine in the story if we weren't experiencing a quarantine. It wasn't deliberate, though. Writing is the most improvisational part of the whole process. I don't feel that way, and I write a lot, but that's okay. To you.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've never come to that conclusion.
And then this really, really made me want to see Mars Attacks, which isn't really a how do you do that, but I want people out there to go
Mars
watch
Attacks
that.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is true. You know, so when you're trying to accomplish this facade, right, which is what he's doing, he's building up an elaborate wall of bricks that you're going to go, ooh, nice bricks, I would argue, to kind of hide what's behind it. To me, what I love is the casting of Tom Hanks. He's perfect in this movie, honestly, because of what he represents, because he's the everyman, and he's also fantastic actor who brings reality to everything he's ever uttered on screen. I don't know. I'm a big Tom Hanks fan, and I can say that every line that Tom Hanks says in this movie is atypical to Wes Anderson and his mumblecore affections.
Well, he's
right?
even more of an icon than Wes Anderson.
Hanks
he can do what he wants.
Guy,
right.
Like I would say like Denzel. I'd say there's so like Meryl Streep. There's great actors out there who just add immediate depth to their character and surrounding characters.
Ooh, who's
I look at the scene.
Sorry, who's Obi-Wan in the Ewan McGregor was the only guy in the prequels who acted well. And if you look into the interviews, it's because George Lucas would tell him shit and he'd go, and then he'd just really act with his best instincts. Everyone else wasn't as successful as him at that point and was trying to do what their director was asking. He knew that this guy's wrong. I'm just going to do it right.
Wrong. I got to do this thing. Yeah, no, it's there. And it's kind of what Alec Guinness was doing when he worked with George Lucas.
As well.
When George
Lucas is a robot. We have found out.
We have found out. I want to look at the gas station scene in particular, because I think that there's a moment where he like knows it, and it's like that's the signal where he's like, he knew what the fuck he was doing, Wes Anderson and Tom Hanks and everyone who worked on this, which was there's a gas station scene in particular where it's Schwartzman and it's Hanks. He's appealing to his son-in-law. He's not play acting. His deal is essentially like, I accept you regardless of not knowing what's going on in your head. That's what family,
or even if we don't
means.
Exactly get along, it's fine. Yeah.
And I'm a curmudgeon. I know this about myself, and it's but I'm going to wholeheartedly accept all of your family and whatever your damage is. And Schwartzman responds to his appeal with, stop helping us. We're in grief. To which Hanks says, me too. And then gestures to choke Schwartzman. And I think that
Yeah, I
choke
wish I could
thing,
choke
it
you.
feels like when you watch it, you're like, what is that? Like, it's like we just had a real moment between a father and son in the realest moment in the movie where no one is doing this mumblecore thing. Or at least Schwartzman is, and Tom Hanks is like emphatically like, stop it, stop being Wes Anderson.
Yeah, right.
I think that's the I'm gonna choke you to death moment. I'm not sure, but I think that's if Wes Anderson is aware of that aspect of himself and that criticism that comes from, frankly, most of the populace, definitely from this show, I think he's aware of it and he's almost making fun of.
Or he knows like the
criticism.
people that like me like this. The people who don't like me for these reasons, and I know enough to that I can amp those up as a like a fuck you
the hell out of.
Right, that
honestly,
is funny. That's funny.
Know what you are and sally forth.
And
like
become
it's
a
fucking
grotesque
fantastic.
caricature. Yeah. So all I got left is I think if you haven't seen this one and you're curious, this really well sums it up. I think it's polarizing is a really good. So these are just two reviews. One person who like feels like I feel, and one person who really liked it. And it's crazy that it's the same movie. Peter Bradshaw called Asteroid City terrifically entertaining and lightly sophisticated and wrote, "It rattles cleverly and exhilaratingly along, adroitly absorbing the implications of pathos and loneliness without allowing itself to slow down. It is tempting to consider this savant blankness as some kind of symptom, but I really don't think so. It's the expression of style, and what a style it is." And wait.
I think that's a terrible
Oh no, that's
review.
also good. No, they're all good. No, I take it back.
You take it back.
I wanted
It was
to read
all-
a bad one. I think
It's only you.
think I
It's
copied
only
the wrong
us
note.
that-
It's only us.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not polarizing. It's the best West to
It's
date.
definitely polarizing.
Go
It's
watch
the
it.
lead. Like between this and the movie that we're about to cover next month, which is the Harold Sugar one, he's gotten diminishing returns on his own audience because they know what he's up to. It's a sad reality of movie making in general right now as well. These types of movies don't even get the same kind of publicity. So this one has fewer stars if you give a shit about that on like Rotten
Tomato
Tomatoes.
or whatever.
But the writing on the wall
Found it.
is fewer people are watching his films.
I can't believe I forgot the reviewer's name because it's Bilge Ebiri. Bilge Ebiri wrote, "To the casual observer, Wes Anderson might seem like someone who either refuses to read his own press or has bought into it to an absurd degree.
damn.
And Asteroid City looks smashing, but as a movie, it's likely for Anderson diehards, and maybe not even all of them." And I do think that's accurate.
Yeah. I would say so.
Thank
It's
you,
a mess.
Bilge. Here's to Bilge.
The movie is a mess for me, and it's a wonderful amount of chaos, and it's perfect for let's just get that. Let me take that Wes Anderson pill. Let me go out and enjoy a Wes Anderson storybook.
Yeah. And
It's
like, oh,
one
this
of
one's in the
those-
desert. He hasn't done a desert level before.
Mhm.
Cool.
He's almost at this point abandoned the concept of trying to attach too much meaning to a film like this. There's a lot of good craftsmanship in it, though. I mean, even like, did you read the story about like there's the triplets, the Schwartzman's triplets are three real triplets, obviously, and in order to get the timing and the dialogues during the scene, they frame them separately. Like they
stitched them together,
composited together because the kids were frankly
not good enough that they
a
could be in
nightmare
perfect
is
unison.
probably
Yeah.
because they shot days or weeks apart from each other so they can focus on one kid at a time during the edit. And that's like knowing how to zag in that way, dealing with that, and knowing like, well, I only have these static frames where it would be very easy for me to rotoscope these things out, is like, what you're
I
good
can
at.
never come at Wes as a technician.
Yeah.
In film, his attention to detail and standards are among the highest.
Among the highest.
Like,
It's
for
just
sure.
he goes for the same joke a lot. He goes for the same theme a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
But never sloppy.
Never sloppy. Never sloppy. Sound, by the way, I could talk a long time about sound, but I won't. I would just say over time, he's developed sound design and transitions between scenes to distract from moments that almost are aim to counteract a moment, like a bomb in the distance or a car firing off in an inopportune time. The silence is
to punch in at it.
Like,
and you can
really,
see him in the booth watching the sequence and going, but like for some poetic reason and transitionally, a backfire is going to go here and going, yes, that feels good. He does that a lot. Yeah.
I would give a lot of credit to his, in terms of sound design, his focusing on silence in the same way that when the last episode we talked about French Dispatch and we talked about how color was utilized in the movie as a kind of like, I'm going to bring it back to you just to remind you that color exists so that when I have my Wizard of Oz moment and I really bring back color, you're starving for it. He knew to do stuff like that, the continuity of the watching of his films matter. And in that way, he's very aware of the temporality of silence. He knows that sometimes it can be played for a joke. Other times it's tragic. How do I play with that? Well, you elevate silence by adding sounds. You make a car fire off. You make a bomb go off in the distance. Stuff like that. He's gotten more developed as time has gone on from things like Bottle Rocket, where it's not really occupied with that. You know?
Hopefully 10 movies later, you've upped your game.
No, for sure.
So yeah, I got to run, but it also made me, if you heard me chuckling, it's because of yet another Simpsons thing that I want to leave you with. I think potentially in the discussion of funniest sound editing choice that I've ever experienced, which is the Simpsons episode where they mention Ellen DeGeneres and it cuts to Ellen with her partner at the time, whose name I forget. And they go, "We're lesbians." Then there's a pause. And then in the background, very tinny, like an old hound dog goes, "Arr!" But then they edit out of the scene, like right as the hound dog starts.
As it cuts it up. Yeah, it's the cricket.
Brutal.
It's the cricket.
Brutally good.
Anyway,
speaking of brutally
hope you
good,
enjoyed Asteroid, or you enjoyed this
unpacking. Next time it's going to be what, the Netflix one with Benedict?
Yeah, so there's one more movie that would take us up to date as the time of recording this, and that it would not be. We're not going to go back to Paul Thomas Anderson for Andersons because he hasn't come out with a movie yet. But in 2023, to like same year as this. Roald Dahl's The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar on Netflix, sponsor or created by Netflix. It's got Ray Fiennes in it, Benedict Cumberbatch, Dev Patel, etc., etc. Look for that next month. And then after that, looking forward, we're going to jump back to Kings of Kings. So if the whole point of listening to this is when you getting back to Kings, 2 months, baby.
This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.